Please be seated for tonight's talk. Sit comfortably so you can make eye contact with the teacher.
Hi, could you turn the lights, or could you turn the lights in some way so that they're not gurgling so loudly? See that? I think that's less pulsing. Thank you.
Kata on opening the sutra, the Dharma incomparably profound and infinitely subtle is rarely encountered even in millions of ages. Now we see it, hear it, receive and maintain it. May we completely realize the Tathagata's true meaning.
Good evening, everybody. And just a quick check to make sure whoever's running the AV that the overhead mics are now shut off. We'll read tonight from the Blue Cliff Record, Case 71, Mouth Shut, Part 2. The main case. Hakujo asked Goho, "How would you speak with your mouth shut?" Goho said, "You should shut up too, teacher." Hakujo said, "I look to you where there are no people." Kind of an interesting case. If someone who knows how could turn the blowers off as well, I'd be most grateful. There's a different translation. The one that I'm reading here right now, that's from Thomas Cleary. He was a very important translator and has done an amazing job in many ways with a ton of texts. And yet it's worthwhile looking at other translations, to be sure, because we are dealing with language barriers and cultural differences. Another translation that I feel is a little closer to the heart of the matter says, "How would you say something with your lips and throat closed?" how would you say something with your lips and throat closed? Now, it's interesting. The case before this was exactly the same. The last time I was giving a talk on koan, it was case 70, mouth shut, part 1. That one, just to refresh, goes, Isan, Goho, and Ungan were all standing by Hakujo. And then Hakujo asked the first, this is Isan, how would you speak with your mouth shut or with your tongue and throat closed? And Isan, in Cleary's translation, says, I would ask you to speak instead, dear teacher, dear teacher. I would ask you to speak instead, dear teacher. Hakujo then said, it is not that I refuse to tell you, but I'm afraid that afterward I would be bereft of descendants. So then now, part 2, right, turns to the next disciple. Hakujo asked, Goho, how would you speak with your lips and throat closed? And here, you too should close your lips and throat, is the response that comes. And then a vexing response. I hold my hand to my forehead and look up to you respectfully in the place where no one is. I mean, on the face of it, you might feel, well, this is a pretty astute answer, pretty a lot of gusto in that response. And then it seems fairly obvious that the teacher is making great praise. I put my hands together on my forehead and look up to you in the place nowhere is, in the place no one is. But I wonder. You know, this kind of prompt, how would you speak with your lips and throat closed? These kinds of things they can really seem like they're just, I don't know, parlor games or verbal trickery or some kind of weird Pictionary game from a different age. What's that one where you have to like mime out stuff and people guess? I don't know. But it's not that. There's actually really serious life and death stuff going on here. There's very, very, very heartfelt and very intimate guidance that's going on. And it can be very difficult to appreciate that, especially in a world where you are basically bombarded with memes and messages and headlines that are designed to instantly grab your brain and throttle you and hold your attention and tell you how you feel instantly, you know. This isn't that. Koan doesn't function that way, usually. So this kind of question is it's an invitation, really, as much as a challenge. I remember in my own training with Myoen Roshi, he spoke a turning word to me and said, just respond. You wouldn't think it, but that 2-word phrase, just respond. I mean, I still feel this just respond teaching on a daily basis. Just respond. What does it mean to just respond? I assure you I wasn't in the moment. There was much ado about this nothing going on. So the teacher makes an invitation. He's calling for a response, you could say. It doesn't matter how would you speak with your mouth shut or How would you say something with your lips and throat closed? We get the gist. So this invitation to intimacy and also to this full contact checking, this full contact engagement in the great matter. Because simply trading intellectual ideas about the thing is much easier, but vastly less helpful. It's kind of like the difference between reading about different workout routines and actually hitting the gym. It's a very different experience, you know? I think right about now, there are a lot of people who on January 1st made their resolution to do this and that, and then by about now, the reality of whatever that is has turned more into a grind, perhaps. I know the feeling. Nonetheless, somehow, even though there are no teachers of Zen, there are those who teach Zen how to engage. And so the invitation comes. Say, how would you say something with keeping your mouth shut? I can assure you that it's quite likely that these students did not see this coming. It's plausible that they were in some kind of a Dharma combat setting. That's possible. But they would not have seen this question in advance. So whether they're on a spontaneous pilgrimage somewhere, or they're just hanging out over eggs in the kitchen, perhaps, or some informal setting, which is also a place of live encounter, or whether it's a formal Dharma combat setting. Either way, this particular question they didn't have any primer for. And that's important. If somehow, some way, someone were to offer to sell you the answers to all the koans for a small fee, you should run. First of all, it won't help you anyway, but it'll just really make your job all that much harder because your intellect will already wrap itself around everything. Give yourself the gift of discovering the territory. You have to be willing to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to, well, respond without having it all pre-chewed for you. Life doesn't come pre-chewed. It's chewing you. So what about this response? You should shut up too, teacher. Well, I mean, I'll give that there's some gusto. You could say that perhaps from a certain point of view, it's not even wrong. After all, there's plenty of koans that revolve around I won't say, I won't say. But I wonder. You know, sometimes you can have the wrong view when you're right. Did you know that? You can be correct and have the wrong view about your correctness. It's a particularly difficult disease because you are kind of correct. But if you hold your correctness from the place of wrong view, you turn the food into a poison. You basically weaponize being correct against yourself in favor of more suffering. What a victory. You need to have right view about being right, or else your right can become wrong quite quickly. Can you say something keeping your mouth shut? Well, you should keep your mouth shut too, teacher. There's a kind of, I don't know, shall we say something insular about that? Something perhaps a little guarded or protective or deflective or, you know. It's also very difficult if you happen to be burdened with a quick wit and a keen mind. This is sometimes quite a burden, right? Because you can enjoy the quickness of your wit and hide behind it. That's very difficult because in a lot of situations in the world, that's a big advantage, you know. But not when it comes to dukkha. Not at all. In fact, the simpler the mind, the easier to awaken. It's good to be in touch with very direct, earthy, simple things. I mean, I enjoy subtlety and refinement probably more than most, or as many as, at least as much as many, but you have to keep your feet dirty too. Know what it is to be close to the earth and to be exposed to the elements. Too much isolation and insulation and comfort makes you quite weak. It's good to grab something heavy and carry it around once in a while. Anyway, this you should shut up too, teacher. You too should close your lips and throat. There's a real, there's a danger that can happen. I'll read a little Pabanka. He expresses it pretty well here. Let's see. Perhaps you're familiar with the instruction. Do not retrace the past. Do not anticipate the future. Only dwell in the present in your meditations. Now, this is something that you hear all the time, especially in the secular, commercialized mindfulness industry, which it is now. You know, the sort of be present, be here. And if that's the only tool in the box, you have to be very careful because it's partial. Such slavish meditations only cause a human life to become empty and hollow. They cannot lead you to any of the paths or levels of realization. But in conjunction with bodhicitta, the mind of compassion, seeking to awaken for the sake of all beings throughout space and time, that's bodhicitta, right? The mind of bodhi. Renunciation. This means non-clinging, non-attaching. Correct view, right view, we've been chatting a little bit about. Right? And taking refuge. Really finding what it is to find true home. Right? In Buddha, Dharma, Sangha in this case. The practice then becomes Mahayana, a practice leading to liberation. So this is saying that just the simple, bare fact of being able to be present in the moment with non-judgmental awareness, as some mindfulness teachers would say is all you need to know, that by itself is insufficient. There's a lot that doesn't reach. Most it doesn't reach. I wonder if there might be some of that disease potentially happening in this response. You must enter such an unmistaken path. If you don't, the mere realization that the nature of mind is clear empty, and without grasping at meaning cannot make inroads in your grasping at yourself. This is a very subtle point, but it's important that you get clear about it. You can have some flash of insight into the true nature of no self, and yet, without refuge and bodhicitta and all the whole package, these habit energy patterns of self-clinging remain. It is as though someone who has a problem with some substance addiction or something has a clear insight that this is not healthy and not good and they don't want to do it, and yet the pattern is so strong that that moment of clarity is not enough to interrupt the addictive behavior. You understand? So it's kind of very much like this, except the addiction is to the sense of self. And believe me, if you don't think you're addicted to that, perhaps you haven't encountered it yet. The sense of self, me and mine, that actually is the linchpin around which all the drama and all the suffering holds. It is not enough simply to be still and be present in the moment to be able to work through this. There's still going to be that karmic habit energy pattern of self-defense, self-assertion. This business of even though the tide is going this way, you insist on being a wave that's going the other way. And it keeps not working. Haven't you noticed? There is no wave that's going against the tide. It never happens. And yet you have this idea that you're permanent. Foolish mortal, right? You alone are the unchanging one, in spite of all evidence to the contrary. But then what about this teacher's response then? I look to you where there are no people. That's the Cleary translation. Where there are no people. Now, again, these kinds of koanic exchanges, these phrases, they point to things, they express things. Okay, he's not literally saying, I'll go look to a space where there aren't Homo sapiens and see if I can find you there, like an empty spot at the bar or something. No. It's pointing to something very different. And Babanka was just saying, seeing into that emptiness by itself isn't really sufficient. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. I can look to see you in that empty space. So what? How's that working out for you? I like this translation. I hold my hand to my forehead and look up to you respectfully in the place where no one is. Seems to be high praise. Maybe it is, I wonder. Is he completely amazed by this disciple's response and praising them? It's possible. It certainly seems that way. It reads that way at first blush. Well, maybe after a couple of read-throughs when you start to get what's happening. What's really happening there? The place no one is. Is that where you want to be? Is that what this is about? Really? I mean, for moments, I get the impulse. I really do. I feel you. I really do. But ultimately, what about all those people who are suffering from cruelty right now, calamity. There's serious injustice happening. You don't need me to tell you. War. It's ridiculous testimony to human stupidity and foolishness, and yet still. Personally, I'm not satisfied with slipping into a state of vast nothing and just saying, well, I got mine. So let's hear the case again, see how it lands today. Let's see how it lands now. Mouth shut, chapter 2. Hakujo asked Goho, how would you speak with your mouth shut? Or how would you say something with your lips and throat closed? Goho said, you should shut up too, teacher. Or you too should close your lips and throat. Hakujo then said, I look to you where there are no people. Or I hold my hand to my forehead and look up to you respectfully in the place where no one is. How would you say something with your lips and throat closed?
Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Are there any announcements? Please restore the sender.